1963, a small town in central Turkey. A man is knocking down a wall in his own basement. He is renovating his house. Nothing more than that. Widening a room, chasing a crack in the stone, and then his hammer breaks through into open air. Behind the wall where there should have been solid rock, there is a dark space, a gap. He leans in with a lamp, and the light does not find a back wall. It finds a passage, carved, deliberate, leading down into the earth. He has lived his whole life on top of this floor. His parents lived here, their parents before them, and not one of them knew that beneath their feet, the ground was hollow. That single broken wall opened into one of the most astonishing structures human beings have ever made. Not a tomb, not a mine, a city, a complete city, carved straight down into the rock. Streets, stables, kitchens, churches, wells that reach down through the dark, levels stacked beneath levels, going down and down, far further than the man with the lamp could possibly have guessed. A place built to hold not dozens of people, not hundreds, thousands of them, by some estimates, 20,000 souls and all their animals, hidden completely underground. The town is called Derinkuyu, and the deeper archaeologists went, the stranger one question became. This city was not built simply to be lived in. It was built to vanish into, sealed from the inside, against something coming from above. The question is, what were they hiding from? And to answer it, we have to go back to the moment it was found. The town is called Derinkuyu, and it sits on the high plateau of Cappadocia in central Turkey, a strange, soft country of pale rock and wind-carved spires. The story of the rediscovery is almost too simple to believe. In 1963, a local resident was renovating his home. Behind one wall, he broke through into a hidden room, and that room led to a tunnel, and the tunnel led down into a vast underground network that had been sealed and forgotten beneath the modern town. People had been living directly on top of it, growing crops, raising families, never knowing what lay in the dark below their floors. But here is the first thing to understand. Derinkuyu was not lost the way a jungle city is lost. The people of Cappadocia had always known there were spaces under the ground. For centuries, families used the upper chambers as cellars, cool stores for grain and wine, dug into the rock behind their houses. What 1963 revealed was not that the underground existed. It was how impossibly far down it went. Because once archaeologists began to follow those passages, the scale defeated them. This was no cellar. Level gave way to level, each connected by narrow stairs and steep, sloping shafts, descending deep into the volcanic rock. As the corridors were cleared and mapped, the structure that emerged was enormous, and it was old, far older than the town above it. The people of the 20th century had simply pitched their lives on the roof of something their ancestors had built, used, sealed, and finally left behind. And the deeper the archaeologists went, the more they realized they were not exploring a curiosity. They were walking through a complete, self-contained world, engineered to keep thousands of people alive, underground, indefinitely. To understand Derinkuyu, you first have to understand the rock it was carved from. Cappadocia is the wreckage of ancient volcanoes. Millions of years ago, eruptions buried this whole region under thick blankets of ash, which hardened over time into a pale, porous stone, a soft volcanic rock that geologists call tuff, formed from a deposit known as ignimbrite. It is the perfect material for digging, soft enough to carve with simple iron tools, yet it hardens on contact with air, so the walls and ceilings hold firm once they are cut. Nature handed the people of this plateau a stone that wanted to become a city, and they took it down. Derinkuyu descends roughly 60 meters into the earth, and by some estimates as much as 85. The figures vary from source to source because so much of the lower city remains choked with debris or unexplored. What is generally agreed is that there are around 18 levels in all, of which only about 8 are open today. 18 floors, carved by hand, straight down into solid rock, and it is not empty space. Every floor was built for living. There are stables for animals, with rings still cut into the walls to tie them, Kitchens, their ceilings blackened by ancient cooking fires. Wine presses and oil presses. Cellars and storage rooms cut to hold a community's entire harvest. There are chapels and churches carved out of the rock, with rooms shaped like crosses. There is even, on the lower levels, a barrel-vaulted hall that may have served as a school. This was not a hiding place thrown together in a panic. It was a town. Kitchens, livestock, faith and grain, lifted whole out of the daylight and set down again, intact in the dark. But a buried town, however large, is still only half the mystery. The real anomaly is in the details of how it was built to be sealed. Start with the problem no underground builder can escape. Air. Bury 20,000 people and their animals 60 meters down, and within hours the air should turn foul and deadly. Derinkuyu solves this with brutal elegance. More than 50 ventilation shafts were bored straight down through the rock, the deepest reaching some 55 meters, threading fresh air to every level of the city. Many of these same shafts doubled as wells, drawing water from deep below, so the people inside could breathe and drink without ever opening a door to the surface. A besieging army above could not see the shafts, and crucially, they could not poison the water because the wells drew from sources sealed off from the world outside. Then there are the doors, and this is the detail that should make the hair stand up on your arms. At key points along the corridors sit great circular stones, wheels of rock, roughly 1 to 1.5 meters across, each weighing around half a ton. They were cut to roll across the passage and block it completely. A single floor could be sealed off, then the next, then the next. But look closely at how they work. The rolling stones could only be moved from one side, from the inside. There is a hole through the center of some of them, wide enough to drive a spear through at anyone trying to shift the stone from the outer side. These doors were not designed to keep a city in. They were designed to keep something out. And whatever it was, the people of Derinkuyu were willing to bury themselves alive to escape it. So who built it? And who were they so desperate to escape? This is where the honest history gets tangled. Because Derinkuyu was not built by one people, in one moment. It was inherited and deepened across thousands of years. The most widely cited theory points first to the Phrygians, an Iron Age people who controlled this part of Anatolia around the 8th and 7th centuries before the Common Era. Skilled workers in soft stone, they are the leading candidates for cutting the earliest chambers. But here the experts diverge. Some argue the first tunnels are older still, and a few even reach back toward the Hittites centuries earlier. The plain truth is that rock holds no date stamp. Without organic material or inscriptions in the oldest galleries, the true age of the very first cut is genuinely uncertain. And any source that gives you one clean number is glossing over a real debate. What is far better established is who expanded Derinkuyu into the deep refuge we see today, and why. During the Byzantine era, this was Christian country, Cappadocian Greeks, carving crosses and chapels into the rock. And from the 7th century onward, their world came under repeated attack. As the Arab-Byzantine wars swept across Anatolia, raiding armies moved through the plateau. Byzantine accounts describe Christian communities vanishing underground for months at a time, sealing the rolling stones behind them and waiting in the dark for the danger to pass. That is the answer to the door that locks from the inside. Derinkuyu was, above all, a bomb shelter for an age of cavalry and siege, a place where an entire town could drop out of existence, breathe through hidden shafts, drink from sealed wells, and outlast an army that had no idea where its prey had gone. And then comes the discovery that turns a single hidden city into something far stranger, because Derinkuyu is not alone. Roughly 9 kilometers away lies a second underground city, Cappadocia, built into the same soft rock on the same principle of levels and shafts and rolling stone doors, and the two are believed to be joined. A tunnel, said to run some 9 kilometers underground, is thought to have linked Derinkuyu directly to Cappadocia, one buried city connected to another, deep beneath the open plateau. Imagine it. You could descend in one town, walk through the dark, and climb back into daylight in a different town entirely, never once crossing the surface where an enemy could see you. And these two are only the beginning. Across Cappadocia, surveyors have cataloged more than 200 underground shelters and cities of varying size. A vast, interconnected, subterranean landscape, much of it still unmapped, much of it still unexplored. This was not a single clever fortress. It was a whole society that had learned, over centuries, to live with one foot in the underworld. Stand in Derinkuyu now, and the scale of the human achievement settles on you. No machines, no engines, no explosives, just iron tools, oil lamps, baskets, and an almost unimaginable patience. Generation after generation deepening the same dark warren, level by level, because the danger above never truly went away. They cut churches into the rock so they could pray underground. They cut graves so they could bury their dead without surfacing. They built, in the most literal sense, a complete second world. And the last people who used it as a living refuge walked out only a century ago, when the Cappadocian Greeks left Turkey in the population exchange of 1923, and the doors of the deep well were quietly closed. And yet, for all we know about Derinkuyu, the floor of the mystery keeps dropping away beneath us. We still cannot say, with certainty, how old the first tunnels truly are. The Phrygians are the best guess for the earliest digging, but the oldest galleries hold no inscription, no date, only work to stone that could be 100 years older than we think, or many hundreds. We cannot even agree on how deep the city goes. The figures slide from 60 meters to 85, depending on who is measuring, and how much of the lower city is still buried under its own collapsed rubble, waiting. And that is the quiet thing about Cappadocia. The maps are not finished. New chambers, new shafts, even whole new underground complexes still turn up. Sometimes by accident, the way Derinkuyu itself surfaced, when a man swung a hammer at his own basement wall. More than 200 shelters are known. No one can tell you how many remain completely unknown, sealed behind walls in towns where people live their ordinary lives directly above them, exactly as they did in 1963. So picture that man again, lamp in hand, staring into a passage that drops away into the dark. He thought he had broken into a room. He had broken into a civilization's memory of fear, a whole people's answer to the oldest question of all. When the world above becomes too dangerous to survive, where do you go? They went down, 18 floors down, and then they pulled a half-ton stone across the door and waited. Derinkuyu has given up most of its rooms. We can walk its stables, stand in its churches, run our hands along the great stone wheels that once sealed it shut. But the deepest question is still sealed inside the rock itself. We still don't know exactly how old it is, or how far down it truly goes, and how many more buried cities sleep beneath the plateau, unfound, behind walls no one has thought to break. Some cities don't want to be found, and some were built, from the very first cut, never to be seen at all. Buried worlds. Next time, a city of stone built not under the ground, but out on the open ocean. 92 man-made islands, raised from millions of tons of basalt, off a remote Pacific shore. They call it the Venice of the Pacific. We call it Nan Madol. Nan Madol, a lost stone city built on the open sea, and no one can fully explain how.